Shalom, my brothers and sisters. Shalom. My name is Symmanayah, and this begins the series dealing with 7 stars and 7 golden lampstands. 7 stars and 7 golden lampstands. This picks up from the prelude. So if you're tuning in for the first time to this message, this begins the series, picking up from the introduction. There was an introduction presented, and I would encourage you to consider strongly listening to the introduction prior to going into each of these series. However, follow your heart, follow what you believe convicts and convinces you to press forward. But I strongly encourage you to listen to this in sequence. Again, my name is Symmanayah, and I want to welcome you to this series dealing with 7 stars and 7 golden lampstands. I want to make it clear, while I do not dismiss that in Revelations 1:4, when it talks about the 7 assemblies that are in Asia, I don't dismiss it in whole. However, I am compelled to believe that this message is to believers scattered, to scattered believers, not just 7 assemblies in Asia. I am compelled to believe, as I had stated. And if you want to hear more about my position on the 7 assemblies, the 7 golden lampstands, tune in to the first part of this series, the introduction part. So, with that said, let us examine the characteristics of this first assembly mentioned in Revelation 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 7. Let us examine Ephesus. Some might say Ephesus, Ephesos, Ephesus. Revelation 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 7. Let us examine these scriptures. And let us consider what is being said. To the messenger of the assembly of Ephesus write, he who is holding the 7 stars in his right hand, who is walking in the midst of 7 golden lampstands, says this: I know your works, and your labor, and your endurance, and that you are not able to bear evil ones, and have tried those who say they are emissaries and are not, and have found them false. And you have been bearing up, and have endurance, and have labored for my name's sake, and have not become weary. Notice here that this is the spirit of Yahushua. This is the voice of Yahushua, basically saying to Ephesus that he recognized that they're hard workers, that they labor strong, that they seek to endure, that he recognized that they have an ability to yield to him and discern evil ones, and discern that those who say that they are followers of him but are not. So in other words, Ephesus is a hard-working characteristics of an individual or an assembly where they're hard workers, they believe in enduring, they don't tolerate any evil ones, they know how to expose false emissaries, and that they've been bearing up the name of Yahushua. Sounds like a pretty strong bunch or an individual. But notice this about Ephesus and all that is magnificent in what they're doing in Yahushua's name, and all that they're doing for the sake of righteousness. Revelation 2:4 says this: but I hold this against you, that you have left your first love. That you have left your first love. So, and I'm going to go on and read from Revelations 2:4 through 7. 4 again. But I hold this against you, that you have left your first love. So remember from where you have fallen, and repent, and do the first works, or else I shall come to you speedily, and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent. Yet this you have, that you hate the works of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. This is Yahushua speaking. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. So, my brothers and sisters, what we see here is a hard-working assembly. They're enduring. They're doing some right things. They know how to spot and not tolerate people who say that they are followers, emissaries of the Most High, and not. It's a sharp group. But one of the things that happens, my brothers and sisters, is occasionally, when we're doing things that are right, when we're doing things that are righteous, when we feel that we are strong and we've been commended on it, we've been complimented on it, we compliment one another and our strength in all that we do. Sometimes what occurs, my brothers and sisters, sometimes what occurs, and what I have seen, is that out of the compliments, out of the acknowledgement of righteous deeds and actions, we sometimes become overconfident. We sometimes become proud, or our head becomes swelled, or we become to the point where we're patting ourselves on the back. And out of all of this exciting acknowledgement, this this growth, and out of all of these compliments, occasionally I have witnessed, we end up leaving our first love. We end up coming away from realizing who it is that brought us to where we are. We end up forgetting what is it that developed us and brought us to that point where we receive compliments, encouragement, praise that we are to give to the Most High. So here, what we see is a situation where Ephesus became overconfident. And so Yahushua is basically saying, remember. Sometimes this requires pausing, my brothers and sisters. Revelation 2:5, he says, so remember from where you're falling, and repent, and turn. See, sometimes we have to pause and find out, okay, well, where did we go wrong? When did we become overconfident, too zealous, over anxious? He said, let's find that point and go back to our first works. And he says, or else I shall come to you speedily and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent. As you can see, my brothers and sisters, the confidence, the strength in which a fellowship or an individual can have could be disrupted. That stability could be disrupted when you step away from your first love, when you step away from he who had given you the strength, he who had used you, he who had prepared you and guided you. When you come out of that guidance, out of that, and if you don't repent, then the fruit of your error will cause instability. Yes, he says he understands that they hate the Nicolaitans, which he also hates. But that's not good enough. Ephesus must learn how to come about balance, to come away from being overzealous and overconfident. And he concludes, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. So as you can see, my brothers and sisters, here we see where an assembly, and keep in mind, an assembly starts with two or more. If we study the scriptures, we see that where two or more are gathered. This is the beginning of an assembly. And so how can there be two unless they agree? So, unless they agree, it starts with an individual who agrees with another individual, and the assembly begins. So, I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, that one of the challenges that we will face in the coming together of a nation of believers are individuals, camps, fellowships, and groups who have become overconfident, but somewhere along the line they left their first love. So when we see this behavior, when we see these characteristics, let us encourage them to remember, to allow the Spirit of Yahushua to bring to remembrance where they stepped off the straight path, where they got off track. Ephesus, my brothers and sisters, I submit to you, a strong and overconfident individual, group, or camp that have left their first love. And when I say left their first love, I'm not saying they lost their salvation. I'm saying that their actions, they stepped out of the actions of obedience. And the reason why I say they did not lose their salvation, why then would they be considered one of the golden lampstands? These are individuals that are of the body of believers, but that are struggling, or that there's an opportunity to return to the first love. Pray on this matter, my brothers and sisters. Think on these matters. And let's prepare to go into the second assembly. The second assembly. Let us examine the characteristics of the second assembly.